All right, we'll call to order Brainerd Safety and Public Works Committee meeting, June 20th, 2023, 7 p.m. Council Chambers. We have 4 items tonight. First of which is the discussion on the stop sign alternatives options for North 10th and Ivy Street. Mr. Dean, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we're following up on a request from the committee to look into some alternative signage for the intersection at 10th and Ivy. So we did do a review of the intersection again, reviewed the MUTCD manual with all the accepted signage that's in there. In that review, we were unable to find signage in that manual that would be applicable at the location. We did consider several options. First was a blind intersection sign kind of in the northbound direction of 10th. However, the available sight distance is sufficient to see the entire intersection with enough distance to come to a full stop on a 30-mile-an-hour street on a downgrade. Staff also considered a 30-mile-an-hour speed limit sign. As presented at the previous discussion, police staff had not been seeing speeding as an issue during the additional enforcement that they did. With the urban and residential setting here, that statutory 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, that should be pretty unambiguous and very clear what the speed limit is supposed to be. If there are drivers exceeding the speed limit through that intersection, they are likely aware of the 30-mile-an-hour speed limit, and the additional sign would likely not result in compliance. Finally, staff also considered flexible delineators that could be installed kind of during the warm weather months to kind of create a vertical obstruction in the center line of the road that would encourage some slower travel. The trouble with these is they do prevent crossover traffic or left turn traffic. With the presence of driveways on that block south of Ivy, there would only be a short distance that they could be installed prior to the intersection. Thus, drivers would likely not have enough distance to really sufficiently adjust their speeds prior to that intersection. So after review, it is staff's recommendation not to install additional signage in the north-south directions of 10th Street, but to continue to work with police staff to provide some additional speed enforcement measures as needed.
Mr. Chair?
Yeah, go ahead.
When you, how many complaints, how many different people, how many properties did you get on that?
I am aware of the one, but I know that there's a history of at least a couple for sure.
Okay, when the police reviewed that and I guess and checked it for speeding people, were they obviously sitting there? I mean, because you can always slow down traffic by having a police car. Were they out of sight of traffic?
I couldn't tell you that. Sorry,
Okay.
sir.
I think that's important. I mean, who doesn't slow down if they're speeding when they see a police vehicle? But that's, I guess I would be concerned that we didn't do that, or we made sure we weren't obviously sitting there watching, because anyway, that's my point. I don't have an opinion whether people are going too fast or not, but that'd be one concern I have. So that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Okay. Tiffany, anything? Do you guys like any of the 3 options presented?
No,
No?
not for me.
Okay. One thing, and I did talk to Mr. Amundsen a little bit, and it sounds like he has been in contact with the police more, even in between our last meeting and now, with some incidents of speeding. One other option that was brought up to Mr. Amundsen by the police staff would be the digital speed signs, your speed. I'm guessing that there's more cost with that than there are with any of these. But do you have any idea how much a roundabout cost would that be for one speed?
So we do have a shared unit with Baxter. So it does rotate between us and Baxter. Recently, we used it to help with some of the traffic issues we were seeing with the detour by Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
So
You're
we
talking
do
about the trailer, the one on the trailer?
Yes, the speed radar
So
trailer.
there's one on Oak Street, I believe, by the school.
Yep.
That's more permanent.
Oh, I see. I'd have to look into it. I would say it would be somewhere in the realm of $3,000 to $4,000 for the signage.
Okay.
It's a residential street. Any idea what the traffic count is? I imagine it's rather minimal, right?
Well, it is normally.
Yeah.
Right now, Washington Street is jam-packed
Yeah.
because of all of our detours that we have going on.
Yeah.
I think in 26 and 27, when we have the highway reconstruction, you're going to see a lot of traffic on this road too.
No?
So maybe increased temporarily. We're not really sure, but it is busy. Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I just want to point out too, though, that once Washington Street is reconstructed, 10th Street will become the main artery, so it'll be 8th and then 10th. So those other streets will not have in or out, will have out, but they won't have in, left turn in access. So just so we're aware that 10th is planned to be more of a main artery once that happens in what, 2026?
2026 is at least half of it. I know Mr. Amundsen's here. If you want to get up and speak for a couple minutes, that's up to you.
Sure, I would just, yeah, I'd just like to address,
Just name and address.
yeah, Kyle Olmsson, 420, North 10th, right on the corner of,
Microphone. If you want to hit the button right on the front there. Thank you.
Gotcha, sorry. But yeah, the officers, when they are there, it's kind of a, I don't know what the solution is for that. When they are there and they are really visible, then imagine that. They don't write any speeding tickets, and that's like what I heard about today when I stopped at the police station. Even when they're like kind of out of sight, 'cause sometimes they park at the bottom of the hill, and then you get to see the cars come over the hill, and then I can stand in my yard and watch them hit their brakes all day long, but they don't like part of the conversation today was there hasn't been an accident there in like 10 years. I get that, but I mean, it's still pretty unsafe. The blind intersection thing, I mean, pulling off of Ivy onto 10th Street today, I took a picture. I don't know what the definition is really, but like, I mean, if we can agree that blind means you can't see, I mean, it's a pretty unsafe intersection, really. I mean, I took that picture out. You cannot see cars until they're at the top of that hill, and a lot of them, no, I don't have a radar gun or anything, but on people that I have been doing the, grumpy old man thing, and I have stopped a couple people, and I'm 2 for 2 on people that are, they admit that they're driving too fast for that street. The officer that I talked to today, he told me that they haven't written a lot of tickets. Well, when they're in plain sight, people are going to slow down and they're not going to write tickets, so I don't know how we evaluate based on that. As far as signage goes, he did mention that sign like they've got at Oak Street. The one that Brainerd and Baxter share, they have brought that over a couple of times over the last couple of years, and like the last time they brought it over, it worked for a day, and then it sat blank and just off for the rest of the time that it was there. But there's a lot of families and stuff on that street, and like I right away, first thing we did when we moved in is fenced in a big chunk of our yard because I have a toddler. But that's not an option for some of the families on that street, and people, I mean, anyone that's familiar with that neighborhood knows that people drive too fast on there. It's already, excuse me. One of the officers that I talked to told me that when they were training him in Brainerd, they told him that street was like a shortcut for people heading over to Mill, and I mean it's already a shortcut. And if you're willing to drive in an unsafe fashion, you can shave a couple minutes off your time by I haven't had a ton of luck. Like if I call into the non-emergency number. Like last time I called in, a car did show up. They parked like at the top of the hill. I could see them. He was there for probably all of 5 minutes and then left. I know that they've got a lot of stuff to do, and I know that that's not the most unsafe stretch of road in town. I'm thinking right now that's probably the detour around Oak Street. But it's pretty unsafe. I mean, you can, like, any time of day, you can see people, driving well over 30 miles an hour on there.
Thank you.
That's about it. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. So I think that all three of us probably agree that these three aren't going to be any more effective than what a stop sign would have been. But I would be interested to see a price on what those digital signs would be, just for future reference, or maybe for this intersection based on how much they might be. I know we added a RRFB on 3rd Street. I'm trying to remember how much that was. I want to say it was like 1,500.
It was 15,000 for both the
15,000.
sign and the installation, but that's also 2 separate signs. So a little bit different. Now the radar feedback is a little bit more expensive than just the flashing LED lights. So there's a little bit of balancing, but I would expect the sign itself to be 3,000 to 4,000, then plus installation.
Okay. What do you guys think?
Well, the neighbor there, he doesn't have a radar gun, obviously, but I think it's pretty easily for anybody to say that the car sure looks like it's speeding. I remember the videos, I'm assuming they showed a car traveling at a speed that you would look like it's speeding, but it wasn't. Right? Is that, would I be correct in that?
Some of them were. Some
Yeah,
of them
okay.
were. They were
I mean,
around that speed
and
limit.
I don't know, maybe, is there a way we could, instead of having a vehicle, I know that, I don't think the officers want to leave their vehicle to go monitor traffic speeds, and especially on a very low volume traffic street. I'm just kind of, I don't know the right fix for this.
Right.
I know signs are,
It's a tough one because if you add something to make it more safe, sometimes it makes it less safe. So that's what we're trying to figure out here. But I think this is a good example of a reason we need to establish some alternatives for stop signs in general. So I don't want to put an end to the conversation and say no to all of this and just say there's nothing we can do about it. I think there's still something we can do about it. I think we just haven't found the answer yet. So I don't know if we revisit this in another 2 weeks after we know what the actual price is on something like that with the digital radar sign.
I can get a quote from a similar
I
supplier
think
and
that
see
would
what
be
the cost would
a
be.
good next step.
I know this is probably a wacko, but if we ever, I know it works, speed bumps or dips, that's not something we're gonna do though, right?
There really is a bit of a bump there. At least there used to be. I don't know if there still is.
Well, I know in Northeast, some of those cross streets, you can, you just don't speed on those streets because of the dips and yeah, it's horrendous. If you do that, you're gonna be sorry. So
Right.
I don't know if you wanna construct a street that way. That's typically not what you do, but
some potholes.
Yeah. Need more potholes? Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, Jesse, I haven't looked to see, because we're redoing Juniper currently, does that extend all the way down to 10th, or does that stop in front of?
On Juniper, it goes to 10th, but it does not get into 10th.
It doesn't get into 10th, so it doesn't include any of that intersection at all?
No.
Okay.
All right. We spent half our allotted meeting time on this one, so I think if we could push forward with that in a couple weeks with knowing how much those bids would come out at, that would be great.
Sir.
I'll make a motion that we check into the prices on those.
Okay.
No, I'll second that motion.
Can't hurt.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Moving forward, we got item number 2. Thanks, Kyle. This is a request to award improvement 23-5, 2023 crack ceiling project. And Mr. Dean, go ahead.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair. So staff received 4 bids for the annual crack sealing project. As a reminder to save costs, save on costs overall, the city purchases the crack filling material separately through the state bid contract and then contracts out the labor and equipment to perform the work. As with the continued increased cost of oil, we've seen increased costs of the material this year, and we just spent a little over $10,000 to purchase the crack filling material. Knowing that we have seen increased costs, we've gone down from the roughly 55,000 feet of crack sealing down to about 40,000 feet in the last couple years to try and keep those overall costs within the budgeted amount. This year, the low bidder of the work was Northwest Asphalt Maintenance for $24,767.90. Including the cost of material, this would be roughly $10,000 over the total budget of $25,000. What we've also seen in recent years is significant increases in contractors' bids, likely due to the construction labor market increases. I've included in the last few years of the per foot cost by the low bidder. As you can see, we started at 20 cents per foot in 2021. That doubled in 2022 to 40 cents. And then this bid came in nearly another 20 cents higher yet here at 58 cents per foot. This is something that we'll address in the next proposed capital plan if we need to identify additional funds to perform this work in future years. But as of right now, staff is recommending award of the crack sealing contract to Northwest Asphalt and Maintenance for the amount of $24,767.90, with the funds coming from the Construction Fund 401.
Okay. So obviously over budget, but something we can't just let go.
Mr. Chair, I move to approve the low bid on this.
Second.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item 3 is Widseth design proposal for the police department HVAC. And I believe is this you, Mr. Dean?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So between ARPA funds and the planned 2024 capital funds, the police department has a total budget of $330,000 to replace their existing HVAC system with a 2-unit redundant system. After consulting with a contractor, staff reached out to Widseth and their mechanical engineering staff to determine what would be needed to integrate a second HVAC unit. To install a second unit, we would need to do some structural, electrical, and mechanical engineering design to fit the system into the existing HVAC and building space. With the project going over the $175,000 amount, we will need to prepare plans and specifications to solicit for sealed bids. Staff requested a proposal from Widseth to prepare the design documents, as they were familiar with the existing building and the existing HVAC system, and we would have some saved costs with their existing understanding of the building. The cost of their proposal totals $38,600, which includes just over $29,000 in design fees and another $9,500 in bidding and construction administration costs. These costs are in review appropriate for the expected cost and type of work.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Discussion? All right, go ahead
Move
with the
to
motion.
approve.
Second that.
Motion and second. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Item number 4 is direction on active code enforcement cases. Mr. Kramvik, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Staff is bringing 2 properties before the committee for review and is looking for direction from council on how to proceed with the cases. The first one is in the BNSF leased parking space lot. One of the vehicles was essentially called in about tabs. They have 21 license plate tabs. Currently, the owner did pay for the first citation. We knew the address based on their lease spot, so they are getting the mail on that one. Are aware that they are supposed to have up-to-date tabs. After the first citation, there's been no response to the community development department. So it's gone through the $100, $200, $300 citation process. Staff is recommending sending a 10-day notice to the owner of the vehicle, and then towing the vehicle at the owner's expense if it is not properly licensed within 10 days. The second property is 924 7th Avenue Northeast. This property was abated for grass earlier this year, I think within the last couple of weeks. This violation stems from a significant amount of tree debris that had fallen over the wintertime, primarily stacked up in the boulevard area. This has also received the $100, $200, $300 citation. Staff is recommending immediate abatement of the brush. Certainly answer any other questions.
Okay.
I would move to approve the staff recommendations on both of these.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any more discussion? Just one question. On 924 7th Avenue Northeast, do we have a count of how many different types of cases we've had at that one single property?
A number of violations. Last year was garbage. We've had long grass. We've had junk and debris, off-street parking when there were people living at that property. Certainly a number of issues.
All right. But it is unoccupied.
Currently, it's unoccupied, still owned. I'm not sure where they're at in the county process with the taxes and whether or not there'd be some type of foreclosure.
All right, thank you. Any more discussion? Hearing none, go to a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes, and we can adjourn to the council meeting.